All
Okay.
right. So this is ANGA R&D Committee Session 2 for the Indian Conference on AI and Law. It's a pleasure to have on our um, founders and specialists in legal tech. Pavithra, you may take this ahead. We will ensure that the committee members join one by one and they will be a part of the discussion. So yeah, please go on. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think let's have just some quick introductions from all the founders and specialists. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining. I'm Pavithra. I work at a research organization called XKDR, and I'm also part of the R&D committee of ICL. Really looking forward to see what each of you are working on as products. Maybe we can start with Jay. We just go on quickly around the group.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Jay Kasundra. I work with Thomson Reuters Labs. We are a research unit within Thomson Reuters, and Thomson Reuters has is predominantly into legal domain, apart from other domains on tax and accounting and some government services. And yeah, I mean, main work is around NLP and AI that we take for various products that Thomson Reuters has to offer. So that's all those features are shaped by mainly and developed by Thomson Reuters Labs. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Um, since we are going around the room, I can go next. Hi, everyone. Very nice to meet you all. I am one of the founders.
The person goes, just tag the next person.
Sure. Wonderful. So very nice to be meeting you all and be part of this committee and forum today. I am one of the founding team members of HyperVerge. We are a group from IIT Madras focused on AI, solving problems using AI since 2009. One first problem we had solved along this direction was into identity verification. So that product line today is being used by Jio, Vodafone, LinkedIn, and 200 plus organizations to onboard more than 800 million plus customers. Over the last 2 years, we have been super focused on using AI to solve legal problems. And we came out with a contract lifecycle management solution very recently. So that is what makes it relevant for us in terms of this forum. Again, very happy to meet you all. And since we are nominating folks, I nominate Shruthi.
Oh, thanks. I was going to nominate Niraj, but let me, yeah. So basically, we are in early stage. Sorry, I'm getting an echo. Yeah, sorry. We are an early stage startup. We've been working on our product for just under 4 months, I would say, and it's called Courteasy.AI, and we are looking at essentially you leveraging AI technology, especially the recent LLM revolution, to benefit the legal tech industry and to benefit the legal industry in general, to kind of ease improve the productivity and efficiency, and to increase the profitability of the legal industry. I think regarding the tech aspect, I think Niraj would be best. He could introduce himself, and yeah,
Great,
our
thanks,
company.
Shruthi.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'm Niraj. I also come from IIT Madras. I graduated in 2018. So, Anusha, I looked up your LinkedIn. I think 2015 is when you graduated, I guess.
Yes, yes. Very nice to meet you, Niraj.
Yes, I have known HyperVerge since long. I think when they were working with like images and like image categorization very early on, but nice to see like how the products have evolved. But yeah, at Courteasy, I've been working with large language models for like a couple of years, and then mostly in healthcare and medicine domain, and deployed like 3 products and production. And then the healthcare and legal industry is very similar in the way like the licensing works, and then the citations and the accuracy of your answers. So this was something that I wanted to work on mostly from the research perspective of generating factual correct answers, and I think legal industry would benefit from that. So very excited to show a demo on this forum.
Okay. Jay, there's somebody else from your team who is
I'll
joining.
take up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. Hi, my name is Shreyans. I am an alumni of ISC Bangalore and currently working with Thomson Reuters as an applied research scientist. As Jay mentioned, we are a small research group within Thomson Reuters. And today we will be mostly talking about our recent LLM-based initiative that we took around contract assisting while making contract. And yeah, Jay covered already most of the things, so I'll keep it short. Thank you for inviting us.
Sure. Since we are talking about alums, Shruthi and I went to the same college. I just realized that she
Yeah,
has joined, and we used to play basketball together.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I was gonna call her Pavi instead of Pavithra because that's how she's known to everybody. But then I was like, okay, it's a formal meeting, so yeah.
okay. So, should we begin? Um, so, Anusha, I think you have some time constraint. We can start with you.
Sure, Pavitra. Let me
Okay.
just quickly share my screen. So is there something that we're looking at in terms of format or what would be beneficial for the forum overall?
No, it's a free flow conversation. We would like to see like the particular use case that uh, you think is more fascinating about your work, and we've been focusing on the legal solutions aspect of it. So anything on those lines is good. However it works for you guys, we can interrupt you in between if we have questions, or we can do it at the end, whichever is convenient.
Sounds great. And yeah, I would love to keep it free flowing. So please feel free to stop me at any point and ask whatever questions you have.
Okay, sure.
Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So like I was sharing in the introduction and what Niraj has also covered briefly, we have been known for our focus on AI and image processing for quite some time. And that is what is our bread butter passion today. So we always look out for complex problems that we can solve using AI and technology and help out in any which way we can do. And while we do that as a company, one thing that we are also focused on is building a very conscious organization that can contribute positively to the entire world. So in that thought process is where we had started HyperVerge Academy also, where we take in students from underprivileged backgrounds, train them on back end, front end engineering, enable them to get right placement in great tech companies and break the cycle of disadvantage. That is on a side note. So taking our passion forward from college is where we raised about 1 million seed round from NEA Naya-Ways Ventures long back. And after that 1 million initial seed round, we decided to continue our journey in a bootstrapped way. So which is where we launched the first product. And today we have seen adoption across industries and clientele. Um, so with the same underlying technologies, where as a scaling organization, we started facing a lot of contract management related issues, where I think for the longest period, I was trying to play the role of a pseudo legal, and we never had the discipline to store contracts in one place. So we were just focused on executing contracts and getting it out of the way and focused on business building. That when we hired the first legal person, the biggest problem she faced was, where are all my contracts? So starting from there, I think we tried managing some of the renewal tracking, etc., on spreadsheets, and it was getting super hectic for us. Which is where we thought, okay, we are a tech-first company. How do we solve constraints and challenges around entire contract management and legal processes using AI as the backbone? And with the same engineering mindset, we also spoke to 100 plus legal counsels across the world, and we tried identifying what are the biggest pain points that exist within the legal operations as the space. So what we realized was, one, missed renewals is the biggest business risk that we came across and heard from folks. Uh, by missed renewals, what I mean is every contract that we sign, be it with vendors, be it with clients, it comes with a validity of 1 year or 2 year or a 3 year term. So at the end of that term, you would like to renew the agreement, which is very important for business continuity. So tracking that on sheets makes it super hard. And so this is one increasingly important use case that we heard and a challenge that we had heard. The other biggest challenge we had heard with respect to closing contracts is, in general, it takes a lot of back and forth unless there is um, only very small percentage of agreements get closed without any negotiation. So with all the back and forth that happens across platforms, across stakeholders, if it is not streamlined, it ends up delayed, causing a lot of delays in the process. And we have seen cases where sometimes with larger enterprises, it takes 5 to 6 months also to close an agreement if it is not streamlined. So that is the bigger bucket of problems. And the third big bucket is in terms of where all the contracts are even placed. So again, various teams would want to know various kinds of information. The hiring team might want to know if non-solicit is present or not in a particular contract. And tracking all of this kind of important metadata is crucial for compliance also. So we spoke to one particular client where I think they ended up paying a fine of about 40,000 USD because they breached non-solicit. So making sure all the contracts are in one place and their cross-functional visibility also exists is another big bucket of problem that we had heard. So to solve this is where we started. And today the vision with which we rolled out the product, which is trying to solve and address end-to-end contract management, is to make sure that legal teams which are using this can create, agree, and find contracts 10x faster than what they're doing without any tool. So that is the overall introduction to the product. Any thoughts or questions on the challenges or use cases we discussed?
No, we're good.
Awesome. So nothing like showing technology in live action. So I thought I'll also give you a quick glimpse of how the product might work today. So this can help you from creating drafts to reviewing those drafts to maintaining audit log, for any future purposes, version tracking and version control. And after all of this is done, you'll be able to sign and execute the contracts and then store and track various information and contract terms within the same platform. So I thought I will just quickly show you the repository side of things today in this particular call. Here again, the biggest problem, like I was sharing, was do I have all my contracts in one place? And today, if I want to trace back a contract that I signed 2 years ago, how easy is it? So we spoke to teams again who do it manually, and let us say they want to find one information. Sometimes they take 2-3 hours to go through the entire repository of 1,000+ contracts they might have and find that specific information. So how do we use technology to enable legal teams to save all of that time, which can be used for something a lot more meaningful? So first step in that is to have contracts in one place. So we have built one-click integrations with either Gmail, Outlook, a lot of possible CRM solutions, etc., where you just plug it in and instantaneously all the contracts get pulled. So I will just quickly show you a Gmail plugin and how that might work. So all I need to do is give access to my Gmail account. It will automatically scan through the attachments and try to identify all the executed contracts for you, where the signature is present, and it removes any potential previous versions or duplicates automatically and add only the latest version of the signed copy. So that's what it is trying to do right now from this account I just gave permissions to. I'm just giving it a few seconds to do that. There you go.
Anusha,
So yes.
No,
So
I just wanted you to scroll through the red to see what are the elements it captures.
Understood. I will do that. So it has already fetched these particular files. And in terms of all the metadata that it captures, if you see, it has already pulled some of these contracts and in an automated way, extracting information also. You can see it like a magic where these blanks are right now getting filled. In terms of the information that we are extracting, from the counterparty details to effective date, agreement date, expiration date, logo usage that marketing might need, Hiring might need non-solicitation. Finance would need payment days, governing law, liability-related information, change of control, anti-assignment. So a lot of metadata like this is automatically extracted and it gets populated in this kind of a tabular format for you. And on top of this is where you will be able to apply any possible information, filters, like logo usage can use freely. And all it takes is that few seconds for you to find the information that you're looking for. Similarly, you'll be able to add any number of filters, create views, etc. for easy visibility across teams. And on top of this, what it also does is information, if it is just available as information, is not of much use. The idea is to enable again team leaders to take faster decisions and keep a track of overall what is happening. So one big use case in terms of laying out information that we help out a lot of our clients with is risk analysis. So a lot of finance and legal teams would want to know across all the thousands of contracts I've signed, what is my overall risk exposure in terms of liability that I had agreed. Or let's say I have 500 clients today, how many clients have I given termination for convenience as yes? That is to some extent business risk for me. So how do we lay out and calculate that business risk is one big thing that we are also trying to solve with this dashboard. And similarly, how we are using this information is also automated ways and reminders for teams which are very crucial in the entire business continuity. So for example, since we are anyways extracting expiration date, what we do is one time the teams can configure which particular person and in what frequency they can receive renewal reminders, and they will be able to get all of this data either a quarter before or 45 days before in an automated manner. And from these dashboards, again, they're very interactive in the sense you click on any of these data points, it automatically applies those filters and helps you visualize that information as well. I will quickly open one of the documents to show how that view might look like. So all the information which is fetched using AI is present for you on the right side, and it makes going through the document also extremely simple, where let us say you're looking for finding where the liability clauses, oftentimes though it is your own paper or when we deal with counterparty paper, it becomes very hard to remember where what clauses. You just tap on it and it takes you to the relevant section in the document and gives you all that information. Any questions here?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so one thing was, so all these documents are machine readable, OCRable. Otherwise, have you have you come across documents that are not? How do you handle that?
Understood. So it is not about machine readable documents. Even if you look at it, this is one version of a scanned document. So even in case of physical documents which are signed, wet signature, etc., has been done, and you scan the document, you still will be able to upload it. And which is where AI and OCR comes into picture to still extract the information from such scanned agreements also.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you don't have a problem. The OCR deals with it quite well, at least how the agreements.
Absolutely. And irrespective of the template, it need not be in a particular template, because oftentimes as organizations, while we would want to sign agreements on our paper, you are obliged to also look at counterparty paper at times. So any organization will have hundreds of templates at least. So it takes into account that also, and wherever it is there, like a human eye reading through the agreement, it will be able to scan through the entire agreement and still figure out where liability is, how is it worded, etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Somebody wanted to say something?
Yeah, the question on these models. So you guys have this proprietary models that you guys built, or you guys are using some third-party service, for example, this OCR? or some entity extraction. If you can share, like if it's not issue.
Understood. So, like I was mentioning, AI has been our blood, sweat, butter since 2009. So, whichever AI modules we build, we also do it in-house and build it from scratch. And we strive to be one of the top three, at least in the world. So, most of the models we regularly keep benchmarking so that we know where we stand. And majority results, we are always in top three, if not the number one in the world. Only in scenarios where either we are time crunched and we have to make that happen immediately, or it is already there is no big technology involved and it's already available open source. Those are kind of scenarios where we choose to maybe begin with an open source API, but eventually we bring everything in house.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other question? Okay.
The output of the model, where is it going? Where is it, essentially, where is it stored? It's going to leave a trace, but where is it stored?
Understood. So today, once we process the documents and they have to be placed someplace, we have hosted it, one in US and two in India. So these are two places where we have set up cloud-based servers for the storage.
And India citizens that interact with the model. I mean, maybe not directly. It could be someone in a law firm. It could be a client of a law firm, but Indian citizen. Is not Indian law specifies that the related data has to be stored in India?
That is correct. So in segments where it is very constrained that the data has to be stored in India only, which is where we had set up our servers in Mumbai in India for the storage. But for our international clients from Europe, US, etc., is where the storage lies in US.
Oh, okay. And if the purge runs per data protection regulation, is the output of the model having a purge mechanism built in, like configurable, of course, but does the mechanism exist on your side, or does it have to be set up by the law firms?
So as long as you have the account with us and you are using the platform, the storage will have to continue happening, because that is very crucial for you to realize full benefit from the product. When you choose to discontinue the product or for some audit purposes, if you would like to purge us, we can definitely make that happen for you in a half a day or 1 day's time.
No, understood, but the documents must not be preserved indefinitely. It depends on the law, but it's specified. So let's say it's 10 years. I'm just making this up. It's going to be years, but it may not be 10 years. But let's say it's 10 years. So the law firm, by law, of course, they have to purge, i.e. destroy that data. So identify and destroy, not recoverable. The output of the model, though, would be at least over two types: metadata, logs. At least, could be more, but metadata and logs, those have to be purged too. Those have to be purged too, either at 10 years or sooner than that. Again, it depends on the legislation. Let's say it's 10 years. So the question is, do you have on the platform, I'm still a client, I'm not going anywhere, but the documents that were supposed to be purged because they are 10 years old, does the platform has a built-in mechanism that will also purge the associated logs, activity logs, and anything relating to the output of my activity that is 10 years old or older. Or do I have to build it as a law firm? Because otherwise I'm breaching the data protection law. So they have to be purchased, not just the content itself, that's one part, but everything that's associated with activity on the content has to be purged too. Because that is essentially, if you track the metadata, you don't need the content anymore for tracking. If you have enough metadata and you can track end to end. So that's where the law is coming from. It's treating the metadata as well as any traces in relation to the content in the same way as the content. So the question is, does the platform has a purge mechanism built in that can be used in accordance to the law and the customer needs, or does the customer has to build that in?
Understood. A short answer for that is no, we do not have the mechanism built in right now. But that does not mean the client will have to build that mechanism at their end as well, because it is very subjective to particular legislation, particular segment of industry that they operate in. If they can let us know that I would like to purge all the data which is 10 years old with this frequency, we can set it up in the backend and enable that particular feature for just them.
Okay.
And
just to run, are you referring to any particular region or a segment of client?
We can take India. We can take India an example, and actually this license agreement here that we see on the screen. This license agreement would be searched, right? That searched will be logged. The output of the search would be logged. So that data will accompany the life of this document. Now, after 10 years, let's say it's 10 years, this document will be purged because of data retention law. This license agreement is purged. That's it. Everything else pertaining to it, activity on it, searches, output of those searches, any logs have to be purged as well. They are linked, hopefully. In a relation DB, you'll see the essentially relations between each other. So that exists, is not really a data problem, but all the data pertaining to this document has to be purged together at the same time, let's say, for simplicity. So a purge mechanism has to be in place, to identify what is to be purged based on conditions. In this case, we only have the time condition, but it could be others. It could be a legal hold that will say, okay, as long as a legal hold is on, that document is to be preserved. It could be way more than 10 years. I mean, it could be even 50 years in the end. Who knows? So in that case, it should not be purged just based on time. So whatever the conditions are, according to law, a mechanism has to identify the records that qualify for purging and then execute the purge and, of course, notify the relevant people. You know, this purge occurred on this date and time, these many records are purged, successful or failed, whatever. So people will know. Yeah. And perhaps an audit function, normal audit function, nothing specific about it, because if the law firm is audited, the auditor will say, will run an audit for me. Want to see the activity in the past X number of months, years, and so on, specified. And so they have to run an audit. Now, law firms can run audits on their own, I'm pretty sure about that, but this is a third party. It has to run the audit on that too. But not on everything, of course. Just is what pertaining the client I'm talking about. So that's a question. This purge mechanism is necessary, as well as an audit mechanism is also necessary. So the question is, does the platform has it? Audit is on demand, of course. I don't think anyone audits themselves at every month or every quarter automatically. But purging is automated process because it has to be done every 24 hours, typically, or otherwise instructed, but typically is every 24 hours. And, it makes sense to be automated, no manual intervention there. So there's a question, does the platform has the purge mechanism, that automation, and on audit mechanism, which is on demand?
Understood. Got it. This makes it very clear. So like you had mentioned, of course, audit is always on demand, and wherever clients are particular about auditing the system, we are more than happy to support and facilitate that. On the purge mechanism, it is not a readily available feature which is easy to configure for themselves in every account. That said, depending on the law of land that they operate with and the kind of documents they deal with, we will understand with them, and when we implement the technology and the tool is where we also can configure that from the backend and set it up from a purging policy. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. It's not GDPR compliant, that's one. India law, I'm not privy to it. I know very little about it, but then other people here can comment. I kind of think it's pretty strict in that respect. I mean, not less strict than GDPR is. And the legislator will ask for proof that the data protection is abided for. And purging is one big element of that. Are you keeping data forever? You're not compliant. Are you don't keep data enough? You're also not compliant. So I think everybody understands that. I'm telling you right now, everybody will ask about it, especially law firms. I mean, they're not going to be sued by themselves, is it? They're in the industry. But even in tech, it's a big deal. It is a big deal. And actually, it's entire projects dedicated to data protection. Abiding by data protection laws. And therefore, again, tools have to be present, processes in place, proof of that. The legislator not going to start looking into the platform itself. They not, why would they do that unless they find problems? Then they will audit everything. But if not, they will ask, okay, show me proof that you're compliant with this article and that article. That's it. And the client will have to produce that fast. If it takes a week, the auditor, you have an underlying issue, and they will ask for more and for more and for more until they audit it into Stone Age, everything. So that's how really they work, at least in Europe, that's what they do. So the mechanism has to exist, and the process has to exist, and also failback safe has to exist too, so that you're not risking destroying what should not be destroyed because it's unrecoverable. So it's better to stop the process if there's a problem rather than just go on and destroy things that shouldn't be. And so again, it's an entire engineering around it. On the client side, of course, but since you're a third party, they will have to integrate with you. So you have to support that on the platform. That's what I'm saying. The responsibility is mostly with the client for sure, but they rely on you, on your platform to make it happen. That's the thing, because you're data processor. Their data controls your data processor. So as a data processor, they will instruct you, purge this, purge that. This is a policy, and you have to purge it, right? That's the thing. So that's what the legislator will look at, and that hence my question. If you don't have it, please talk to the leadership and about this, because normally clients will demand it, will ask about that.
Understood, Bogdan. Thank you very much for sharing that. And data protection and data retention policies is something very crucial for our organization also. because we deal with a lot of sensitive information from KYCs to contracts, and we have processed documents from over 70 plus countries today. So we had made sure that data retention and protection policies are in place. There is no automated configurable option today in the tool, but depending on where the client operates, we do facilitate the purging for them as a backend switch that we enable. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Any other questions?
Are you going to stay back, or do you have to drop off?
Depends on if the forum has more questions. Happy to
Okay.
stay.
Oh, yeah. So I just had one. So are your clients mostly law firms? Do you cater with do you work with the government as well?
So as of now, to be honest, most of the clients are not law firms. They are largely organizations who deal with contracts on their own. It could be B2B companies, it could be B2C companies, from financial segment to IT companies, IT services companies. We've um, automobile companies, hospital chains. So it ranges from varied segments, but it is not particularly law firms.
Okay, because we've been working with the government contract management bit for quite a bit. They are in dire need of this, if not for anybody else.
Okay.
So, possible thing for you to think about.
Absolutely. Would love to connect with you maybe offline to learn more about it and see if there is some way we can help.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Wonderful. Any other questions, forum? Yes, great. Then, yeah, I wouldn't want to kill a lot of time as well. I think we have a lot more presentations, exciting presentations lined up.
Okay. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. We can definitely. Yeah, Niraj, if you could present your screen because he's got the slide deck.
Give me a second.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll just give like a little bit of a background to Courteasy, our mission statement, who we are, why we're doing this essentially. I'll take up about like 5 to 10 minutes max, and then we'll go straight into the demo. So our mission statement is to basically assist Indian law practitioners, legal practitioners, industry essentially, with machine learning and artificial intelligence based tools to increase productivity and efficiency, and also simultaneously reduce costs, focus and more focus efforts of lawyers into more critical thinking and tasks that actually use creativity and problem solving, which is what we're trying to which is why we are trying to leverage artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, as we all know, can handle all mechanical and routine tasks and all the mundane and rote tasks of a it has the potential to do tasks like legal research, data analysis, contract document review, and a wide varied amounts of tasks similar to this, like for instance timesheet management, also I would say document management. But then the main thing is what I think, what I believe, what we believe is that India is yet to come is yet to grasp this entire LLM revolution and actually take it upon themselves to embrace what tech is there to offer, which I've seen Europe and the US do significantly. So I think why we are doing this is because the AI revolution has enabled faster and accurate retrieval and search within large documents, and AI has become much more accessible. And also, of course, we have the expertise, we have the team who've got a combined experience of 20 plus years in the tech industry, in the engineering industry. So essentially problem-solving industry, where they can work with AI and leverage it for various use cases. And legal tech, because firstly, it increases. Right now, we have obviously everybody knows that especially in dispute resolution, your timings are erratic. You work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., sometimes 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning. It's we want to reduce their workload. How do we reduce their workload? We kind of we try to free up some time and room so that they increase the capacity to work increases, but also you're essentially your clients are also catered to quickly. You increase your profitability, you get more clients, which I think is a win-win situation for the lawyer and the client. And I also believe that technology needs to be leveraged, especially for the younger generation, because all of us are, I would say, uh, we understand tech much better than anybody else. Much better than the older generation. I mean, no offense to the older generation, but I mean, because we're born with it. We are raised with things like this, so they tend to be a bit more tech savvy, and I think that is where we as Courteasy, we want to target especially young lawyers to get out into their field and utilize tools that can help them become successful in a shorter span of time, I would say. Um, so the major problems that are there in the industry essentially would be there are many lengthy judgments. You need to identify, for instance, we have like the Puttaswamy judgment, which is about 2,000 page almost, and we have to, and you waste a lot of time reading through an entire thing when you only actually have one paragraph to kind of you want only one paragraph out of the 2,000 pages, and this is what the platform is capable of doing. Basically identifying a crux of the case immediately without sifting through pages and pages of jargon. You can navigate quickly through statutes and legislations. It's a very lengthy process, very cumbersome, very tiring. You just don't want to do it, but then it reduces the time of search. And databases like Manupatra, Westlaw, no offense to the Thomson Reuters people there, but they are quite expensive, especially for individual practitioners. So I think in this way, if you have like a workspace which kind of integrates a lot of different tools, which is our idea and our aim, and when we scale, that's essentially what we're going to be looking at. We are going to make a platform that will be phenomenal to use, because everybody would actually find massive amounts of benefit and potential to increase their learning, especially in the legal field, and especially targeting, let's say, young lawyers and probably students even. Um, I'll just come to the main features of what Courteasy offers, which is 5 main features. There are a few other features that are still in the works, but 5 right now working features would be: the first is the case visualization. So it is basically a graphical representation of how facts interact with each other. So if you have a lengthy, if you have, like, for instance, your client comes to you and says, I have these many, this is what has happened. You want to put it together, you want to piece this information together, and I find the best way to do it is through mind maps. And I think case visualization, if you input the facts, it gives you a graphical representation in the form of a mind map, which I think is which I think is quite a good use case. The second one is legal question answering. So it essentially, you can ask questions. It's in a chatbot. It's like a chatbot where you can ask questions on any statute or legislation, or you can compare statutes with each other. You can, like, for instance, if you want to ask what Article 21 of the Indian Constitution is, or what is the scope or the preamble, you'll essentially get a concise answer from it. So this is again a feature to kind of integrate everything in one place, where you don't have to pick up a bare act and open it and read through it, essentially. So that's what legal question answering does. Argument generator is basically is a very novel use case, I would say. It generates arguments using relevant precedents and statutes. So we have a database of a few statutes, and we have multi PDF support where we can upload case laws and kind of get some. So we can curate your own database. That's the feature that we've worked on, and you can generate based on whether you're the plaintiff or the defendant. You can generate arguments. So your input would be your facts, your issues, and it'll generate an argument based on whether in favor of or against. So that's another very exciting feature, I would say. Case summary. So case summaries, again, I would say lengthy, very lengthy judgments. Just put it in, upload it, and you get a executive summary, like a snapshot of the entire case, like the way you'd be like, you'd have you'd want it to be like. So you'd have your relevant issues, the arguments, the respondent argument, the plaintiff argument, and so on and so forth. The judgment, facts, everything is. This is what case summary gives. Case chat is another chatbot-like feature which interacts with legal documents. So right now you can add in a case law and you can chat with it. So it's essentially where you can ask it. You upload the case law. You ask what are the facts of the case. What are the issues. What was the judgment, what did if you want to search a particular thing, especially how was article 21 probably used in that particular case, it would give you an answer, and it would give you a pretty good answer. So I think these are the 5 main things that I would like to emphasize on. And of course it looks, I mean, me saying it is interesting, but showing it is a different ball game altogether. So Niraj, please, could you take over?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Let me move on to the demo. So this is a simple prototype that we built in last 3 months, combining like different features that Shruthi just mentioned. So maybe I'll just quickly go through, like, since you all learned about different features and what the capabilities are. Here is a case, a sample case, where there are multiple entities involved in the case, multiple people. And let me just generate. So this feature allows us to extract all the atomic facts that are present in the case, and sometimes also present them in like an chronological order in which it appeared. So what it can do is, like, it can take any complex like paragraph style and like free text information and give you like very short uh, like extracted facts in atomic manner. And then either you can read through like each of these facts, or even better, what we have built is like a graphical representation where you can see all the unique entities that are present. For example, in this case, uh, the victim is Srimati Chaya Rani, and then you can see all the different facts associated with Chaya Rani in a graphical manner. So it has like various relationships associated with Chaya Rani of where she resides, and it currently combines all the events and facts together, but we can also segregate the events with facts and show them. What this does is, like, it helps, like, even if you don't read any of the facts here, you can just trace this graph from one entity to the other via the relations, and then you can get a very good understanding of what is happening in the case. So in this case, we can understand Chairani worked as a sex worker, and there is an entity with poverty, and she returns to brothel. So we get like some understanding of who the Chairani as a character is. She's married to a person called Mr. Suraj. She has 2 children. Suraj Kumar is already married to someone. Uh, he runs away, and so all these facts. And if you just basically move over, you find all these things. And um, we can also see like different clusters that emerge. So there are certain entities, facts, which are clustered together, but then there are other clusters which you can zoom into. So if you look into like this cluster, this talks about all the different articles that are relevant to this case. So here, Mr. Ujjwal Jetmalani files a public interest litigation which claims violation of 3 different articles. So this is a separate cluster. So looking at each clusters, we can basically grab a very good understanding, and I think this is a very unique way of understanding the case laws, and might be very handy. Moving on to, are there any questions on this specific thing? If not, I will move to the second feature,
Yeah.
which is the.
So Neeraj, on that visualization part, so
Yes.
are there any particular schema in which you are generating that visualization, or it's a free form visualization? As in, like, what does each node represent, and what is the edge represent between any node? So is it like any particular, does it have any particular schema, or it's like a free form?
That's a great question. So we can impart any schema that we want to. Right now, it's a free form. So we basically ask it to intelligently identify unique entities that it thinks are relevant to, like, are central uh, to the case and would be good to visualize. But then we don't enforce that like your entity should be a noun, or like, for example, we might see like a lot of verbs getting uh, populated. For example, a time like September 2017, 2016 is an entity. So we can enforce like what kind of relationships we want in the graph and what kind of entities, and also like color code them for better visuality. But right now we are not doing that. It's just more for like just seeing the capabilities of what all clusters we can observe, and then so it's more on like as and when we see more data, we can get like generalize what the schema should look like, and it's right now very flexible to adapt to any use cases for our clients.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. And regarding the data that you mentioned, so are you guys like, how are you guys? Do you guys have the data and any particular jurisdiction you guys are targeting? Like, are you targeting the Supreme Court cases, or like High Court cases, or even courts, the lower courts?
So, like right now, we are looking at Supreme Court judgments because those are like very easily accessible, and we have got some data sets to work with. But then we are
Okay.
interested more like creating like a database where we are like having like up to date database of all the case laws coming from all the different courts, like session courts, high courts, Supreme Courts, and use that for our different use cases. For example, argument generator, where we use and leverage those precedents for generating accurate arguments as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Right. The second one is a legal question answering. So in this demo, what we have done is like we have taken certain like the most frequent. So we went to the India Code website, which has like a list of all the different acts which are most frequently used. And then we have taken like around 38 acts to build this prototype where you can so this bot basically has access to all these documents, and then you can ask any questions within this document, and then or any interpretation, and then it will basically give you an answer. So you might also maybe like I can show you uh, let's say so you can ask like basic questions, and then you can even go into like more of like a reasoning based approach where you are trying to understand the interpretation of particular thing. So here it just pulled out like a particular section, like a high level descriptions of the Information Technology Act. um, so one thing like one might wonder, like there are a lot of technologies like chat gpt and others which are coming up, and then you can basically use this feature directly there. But one of the things is like this that there are like a lot of amendments that keep happening, and then these acts keep changing, and like having like a constant like most up to date database is like the crux of having like most accurate answers generated. And what we aim to do is like ingest all of those and keep our chatbot up to date with like all those acts, so that our answers are like pretty accurate, rather than like chat gpt or like perplexity ai, which goes into the web, and then it can even pull answers from certain blogs which might have like incorrect information. So we focus more on going to the source of where the act was, and then using that as our grounding for generating our answers. um, any questions on this one? I can then give a summary.
Yeah, Niraj, how do you update the update it with amendments? Because even for us to look at it, it's all over. And usually there is no one place where they also put it. It's like just the one section will be amended, for instance, in a notification. So how do you incorporate that?
So right now we are relying on the India Code website, which has like we have crawled like almost entire database from them to keep it. So it's still in works to kind of update it to like all the around 9,800 acts with all the amendments and stuff. So we are relying on that, but then we would love like to learn from the community what would be a good source, because I know these are open source, but like getting access to those is something that we are still working on. Um, but since these are in public domain, like I'm assuming like with some resources we can create a database which is like up to date with all these amendments. And yeah, sorry, that's a non-answer, but yeah.
No, it's generally a challenge. So when you are working with legal system reforms, whatever that is, right? So
Mhm.
that's one of the key challenges that we have been trying to voice out is also there is no one place in India where you get the
Right.
most updated version of the law. Even
Yeah.
India code is not updated at all. And sometimes you don't even know when a particular amendment or notification comes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. More minds think about it.
Yeah, I think that's where like companies like Manupatra, they are like having like resources in place to kind of do this manually for themselves and kind of maintain uh, maintain it internally for them. So I'm assuming there's like some manual effort that is required to kind of go hunt for those amendments and then keep an eye and like internally ingest. But unlike US, I think, which also provides some APIs to pull all these things together, and then like a lot of legal tech companies here are leveraging that to build like similar use cases, which might be much more successful, in my opinion, because they don't have this data and kind of this versioning issue.
Yeah, this should be basics. Citizens should have access to the most updated laws. I mean,
Yeah.
so there's a question.
Is the Gazette not enough for statutes? For case laws, I mean, it might be, but then is everything not published in the official Gazette? Because it's a right RTI, right? Isn't it the right to information for every citizen to know what amendment has happened in?
It's supposed to be, but it doesn't.
Oh,
Yeah.
Uh,
that is interesting. I didn't know about that.
okay, so there's a question. I'll just read it out.
Yeah.
How does the argument generator work? Does it take data from cases and statutes only, or other sources like research papers, books, etc.? As you said, that your system only takes data from Indian cases, but in some cases,
Yeah.
Indian courts consider foreign judgments.
Right. That's a great question. So I'll come to the argument generator, but like right now we are not taking anything else up from like like the precedents and the various different acts in the state, union territory, or the central acts that are coming out. But that is the scope right now of our argument generator. But then like there's also like in precedents there can be a hierarchy of which like whether like a case judgment in the same jurisdiction might hold higher value to the like current case than like international. So there's some sort of hierarchy in which like the values of precedents would be applicable. So while that's something that we want to do, but right now we are just focused on like making sure that we have like our data pipelines to ingest like the current case laws in India and just use that for generating those arguments.
Yeah. So just to add, our end goal would be to incorporate, have massive amounts of data sets with and which covers almost all the sources of law that you usually use in common law jurisdictions, where you'd have like your uh, again you said like research papers, which would be your customs, your international law, your foreign law judgments, your arbitral tribunal awards. All of that will be incorporated, but at this point we're focusing again, like as Pavithra mentioned, that it's so difficult to accumulate data from India itself. So it might rather be easier to do it outside the country, because India has each state has its own laws, and it's so difficult to gather that data. So yes, in hindsight, definitely in the future we expect to have a much more comprehensive database of all these
Yeah,
sources of
that is the challenge you are facing, is essentially like how do we centralize all these different sources and streams of
Yeah.
data together into a central pool, which can be, because like generating answers and then like dealing with hallucinations is something that we have done pretty well with, but getting access to the data and like the right format and those and like the OCR sometimes, those are some of the challenges we are facing
Yeah.
right now. Great. I'll move on to case summary, which is our next feature. So let me just quickly pick one article. This is a landmark judgment on Adiganama versus state of Andhra Pradesh. So this case, like the case summary is basically a feature where we extract useful information, which might be, so instead of reading like text paragraphs and pages of pages of case judgments, we identified certain key information which can be extracted in a structured manner, which I think lawyers would like to have access to readily so that they can quickly do a scan and get a high level understanding of what that case is. So for example, even without looking into this case, and someone like me who is not even in the legal profession, I can just go and extract this data and understand, okay, the jurisdiction of where this case was held, the case title, what kind of a case this was, what was the judgment date, some multi-bench judges, the appellant, what were the issue raised. So circumstances justifying lesser sentence of a murder was the primary issue that was raised in this question, in this case. And the appellant's argument was to dissolve the death sentence and replace it with life imprisonment. And then we can identify like the relevant legislations cited and the previous historical cases that were cited. So all of these are, I think, landmark cases. Pierre Dusad versus Emperor, and State of Bihar versus Pashupati Singh. And here's like a very short summary. The appellant committed a premeditated murder of a young woman and her child due to rivalry. So like with all this information, I have a pretty good understanding of what this case is. So if I'm doing any legal research and I want to, like, if I have like tons of case judgments to filter through, I can read and take a glance of this and understand if this case is relevant to, if this case judgment is relevant to the case I'm working with or not. And some of the metadata that we extract can also feed into like our search when we are doing like a search based on like a metadata, like a hybrid search, which is combination of semantic and text-based search. All this information can improve our accuracy of retrieval. Um, so yeah, any questions on this? Because I feel this is a very interesting problem, because all the case judgments, they don't have this. They do have some structure to it, but they're not in a seemingly easy manner which can be extracted. And LLMs can come as magic to extract all of this right now. All right, if there are no questions, I'll move on to the next feature. So
No,
in the last week,
one sec.
sorry,
Niraj,
yeah.
yeah, I just have so the case summary. Currently, you're collecting what Supreme Court judgments?
So we can do it for any, yeah, the example that I showed was for Supreme Court judgment, but then you can do it for any case from a session court or a high court, I think.
Have you explored those avenues yet at all?
Meaning like running this through like those case judgments from high courts or others. Yes, we have had like, so the initial set of lawyers that we were working with, they were session court lawyers. So we got some data from them, and then they directed us to like the Supreme Court judgments, and we basically got access to that. But then some of these metadata that was extracted are only, I think, they only appear in Supreme Court judgments. So right now our use case is more focused on Supreme Court judgments, so that's why these are more catered towards that.
Okay, got it.
This case chat feature is another feature where we can upload a case judgment. Uh, for example, let's say state of Bihar versus Pashupati Singh, and then we can just ask questions. So in the case summary, we were being very descriptive, being very asking very specific metadata to be extracted. But here we can ask questions in natural language and ask, for example, what are the okay. Just give me a minute.
I think it's Jagmohan Singh versus.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, what we just saw in the case summary, it's the same file that I've uploaded, and then uh, we can just ask about like a summary or um, what was the final judgment, and you can even ask it to basically critique the judgment of the lawyers and like see like, because we haven't put any constraints on, like this is more like a creative exploration rather than being very factually correct, for like anyone to kind of explore like different avenues this case might have taken directions if like new information was presented. uh, but yeah, so this feature, I think, like instead of going and searching for specific information, just asking it in like documents which can be like hundreds of pages sometimes, can be of use. Finally, the argument generator. This is like one of the like my personal favorite, because like one of the things I was fascinated with, like, can this be used for legal reasoning, and can, if we provide like related cases to like a current case that we are working with, can we uh, basically simulate a lawyer as if they are like generating or like presenting their arguments in front of a judge. So in this case, this is again the Adiganama versus State of MP case, and then I have provided the facts of this case and like the issue that was raised, whether like the death penalty can be dissolved and substituted with life sentence. And here we come, it basically comes up with a very detailed response. Um, so it basically tries to argue for why the death penalty should be dissolved. And then it is citing certain cases which it has access to in our database. So what is happening under the hood is our algorithm finds out what are the most relevant cases which have happened in the past similar to this case, and then using that as the metadata and taking excerpts of that, which goes and feeds it into the model. So the LLM is aware of like all the different reasons that have been used in the past uh, uh, in favor or against this particular case, and then it uses all of that to generate an argument. So here there are 4 different paragraphs. The first one cites a particular case on Jagmohan Singh versus the state of UP. The second one cites the Niti Sri Ramulu versus state of Andhra Pradesh case. Um, Here there's a PR Dushad versus King Emperor. And then it also cites like Article 21, which guarantees the right to life and personal liberty. Um, I would come back to this, but then what is interesting we noticed is like if you just change the roles and roles of the lawyer here, so instead of plaintiff you just ask it to act like a defendant, where the the issue remains the same, the facts remain the same, but then it is arguing in like a other way, like why the death penalty should not be dissolved. And then using the same cases and using same like the various interpretations of the past judgment, it basically comes up with another argument where it argues against it. It is still citing Jagmohan Singh versus the state of UP, but then it is saying that in that case the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the death sentence.
But then
Similarly, in this,
it gives a rationale behind it kind of shines a light on a different text which was in the judgment itself. So, and it's interpreted differently. The court recognized discretion of judges. So that means it can be interpreted that discretion of judge means there is the way that it's the judge's choice whether, and if they've applied a reasonable mind to this sentencing, then it's okay. So it's which is what kind of fascinated, which is quite fascinating. I personally thought. Yeah, please continue. I just wanted to add that.
Oh yeah. So like this highlights like some of the capabilities. Like we are still exploring and like still seeing like the cases where these arguments, like how detailed these arguments are. Like some of the things we are struggling with. How do we quantify like the goodness or correctness of these arguments? So like working directly with lawyers. So for example, we're just working with lawyers to like rate these things like out of 5. How would you rate it based on the completeness of this, like any inaccuracies, stuff like that. And what we are working on is like establishing some sort of metrics through which we can systematically evaluate these models and then establish how good it is doing on a set of like a corpus of case judgments. But with that, I'll go back to this slide where I just wanted to do like a side-by-side comparisons of like if the arguments are generated as a plaintiff versus defendant, the specific portions of the arguments, they seems like you can basically get started with these arguments as a lawyer and then refine it based on like your own search. So it essentially helps you like to identify what are all the relevant cases to the given case, and then like what kind of arguments you can make based on the case. So you already get a head start in your legal research. Yeah, I'll pause for any questions here because I think there was some mouthful.
This is good. The vision is good.
Thank you.
But it has to be approached with caution, because the outcome of a court case, I don't believe it's ever based on the past. I mean, determined by the past. Based in a way, yes, of course, yes, but not determined by the past. And generative AI, ChatGPT, text-based, the only input that they have is the past. The only input that they have is the past. So they will identify patterns, and based on the tokenization will come up with a probability, try and use this and that, which is good for ideas, is good for practice, but really for a lawyer, use that too much, making the case in the front of the judge. I mean, a lawyer not supposed to play by the script. It's the same as in a presentation, but they have to do their homework. So it's probably good for doing the homework,
yes,
but not to shape the strategy, but really doing the legwork, which is, with my limited knowledge of the law, I think that's where the most time consumed. Time is most consumed there. My question is, how can a legal worker check that the proposed output, wherever it's comparing arguments or anything else, or even a summarization of a lengthy case or document from the past, is factual and is not either made up or has important inaccuracies, not semantics. We're talking facts here. How can the legal worker have confidence in that? Because in the end, the whole case depends on their work at some point. So how can they either be sure that is good enough for the purpose? Of course, not perfect, but I don't think perfection is in scope here.
Mm-hmm.
and therefore can be trusted enough to take action based on it. That's my question. I suppose I'm asking how the feedback loop gets closed.
Right. That's a great question. So there are two parts to like any answer that is generated. The one is like identifying the right source and like right sections within the source. For example, like what particular page and which particular line was this information present in. And the second thing is how the model is using that particular sentence or the chunk of the document in like using that for any reasoning purposes and making sure that it is not being very loose with its inference. So there are these two aspects. So when we have to quantify and close the loop, the first part is like having something we are working on is showing the user, having them visibility into like where exactly these text are coming into. Like for example, the things that I've highlighted here. What particular sections of this judgment was used to generate this particular paragraph. So having like a citation which lawyers can go and manually verify themselves and then make sure for them that, okay, it is identifying the right source and the right portion of the document, and also making sure that it is not reinterpreting and like interpreting the same thing in, for example, like a legal term might have like a very specific meaning, but like its English equivalent might not, which is like a colloquial usage might have like a very different meaning. So making sure that like it is being used. So there are two ways. One is like just having lawyers in the loop to verify it for themselves. The second thing is also like training our models with like more legal jargons, and then fine tuning with more legal data so that it becomes better with time. So those are the strategies that we have in mind, and we understand this is like a very important problem. Like if we have to make any progress and make this of any utility to like lawyers or even law students to practice and use this tool in their studies or like preparations. Shruthi, do you have
consider the following case, which is actually it happened, but it happened in summer. June, July, May, June, July, with the Aviana case, where lawyers came up with precedents in court. Here is an example of a precedent, and that didn't exist. Why? Because they just use ChatGPT to find precedents or see if there's precedents and give examples, and they totally rely on it. And like it was, so they got into a ridiculous situation. Lying in court and not even knowing that they were lying.
Yes. So I think this is
when someone searches for something like that, because let's face it, it is difficult to search for this kind of details. I mean, they are not widely available. Even they are on an intranet somewhere. There's a lot to do there just to find, let alone understand the connection with what the legal workers is supposed to do next. So asking the say ChatGPT, let's say it's ChatGPT, and so give me any similar cases that can be considered precedents to the following case, and then the following case may be a file uploaded straight from the court, or anything else that is accurate. If it's not accurate, then of course we can't trust the output, right? We just fed the platform lies, therefore gonna be lying. But it's accurate, it's to the point, and then we ask about that, and then we're gonna get let's say a couple of cases with description there in a very convincing format, but it has to be cross-checked in the end. Now, it's a process change, right? And it's a mindset change on the user end, that not to trust by default, not to discard either. Like, don't take a judgment call just based on output, but they should have a way of easy enough cross-checking, like not too difficult to cross-check, because Imagine this will be used at scale. If a caseworker has to do this multiple times in a day or in a week, they just can't keep cross-checking, right? They will end up just doing the cross-checks. So it's a scaling problem in the end. But they somehow if you can come up with suggestion of, pay attention of this, here is what we suggest. It's just a suggestion. It's up to you to think about it. But we can help you with the tools aspect. Process, of course, the client has to take care of the process because they are the controller. But the tooling, you may be able to offer something to make that easy. Because that's a big deal. That is it could be a deal breaker, or on the contrary, it could drive a lot of traction and adoption, since it is instilling trust. I don't trust it by default, but it's not that difficult to cross-check. They have tools for that. Because right now there isn't anything on the market that instill enough trust in that. This is life impacting domain, legal, healthcare, defense. So that could be more than a big deal, a game changer.
Yeah, thanks for those comments. I think like we realize all of these problems and we are formalizing like different strategies, and some of these problems are open problems in the industry, like in the tech industry as well. So the field is evolving, and we are being up to date with like latest that's happening, and we are trying to incorporate those into this domain so that we are like have like some first movers advantage in this space. Shruthi, do you want to take this is I think the last two slides.
Yeah, just
Niraj, I have two
sorry.
questions. So I believe you could be using retrieval augmented generation, right? So over here. So like any idea, and you must be using a limited number of cases for now. So any idea how this would change when you include, let's say, a large number of cases from Supreme Court, right? Because it might not be limited to few cases. And second question is, some of these cases can go quite long. So are you passing the entire cases in your as a context, or you are doing some pre-processing or maybe generating a summary while preparing the argument?
Yeah, great questions. So yeah, I think this is not proprietary. This like I think open information. So some of the work like ways of dealing with this is like summary, like you extract metadata, like the right metadata, which can be useful for your retrieval. So our retrieval accuracy is improved by extracting metadata and using hybrid search. That is one. The second thing is we do chunk. We don't pass the entire case judgment. So we identify relevant chunks from the case judgment. So for example, if you have like a 1,000-page case judgment, we only identify like the top 50 case chunks from that case judgment which are relevant for the specific query you are asking. So that way we deal with like the token limits that we have in place from these models. So yeah, those are some of the strategies we have been using, and that has helped to. And then we also use like chain of thought prompting to make sure that we are doing like factual correctness checks and making sure that the answers generated do not have like different interpretation than it should by breaking the task into smaller tasks. So we do like multiple chains of calling this LLMs as well.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So any attempt you made to use agents to do this multi-step reasoning, or it's like a one-step RAG that you have done so far? Like, did you see any improvements with that, or like was it even attempted?
We didn't start with that thought, but then as we are building different features and different like all these features that we have shown, technically we can build single agents for each of those features which are working together. So it's like, in a law firm you have like different agents with different roles, and there someone is going and asking the right sections in the article in the acts, and someone is going to find the right precedents, and then someone is collating that information and generating arguments, and then all of these agents are working together to generate. So that is what our product is evolving into. But we didn't start with that. We were just focused on individual features, and then I think more value is in having this multi-agent based approach for these LLMs to work together.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Great, Shruthi.
Yeah, so that comes us to like the more business side of it, and why actually we were really excited to present our use case in this forum is because we are a very early stage startup, as I mentioned already, and we want to scale as much as possible. We want to generate user traffic, and we want to gain some traction. We are, I mean, and Niraj is extremely talented, very agile way of working, and like you can expect, like especially, you just start doing. You have any, like, if there are any suggestions, and ways to improve the product, ways to, even if it is like law firms, for instance, if they want, if there are anybody, if there's anybody affiliated to law firms, for instance, if you sit with us, just tell us, okay, this is how, this is what we want. We can make customizable solutions for your legal needs, which I think is another benefit of being part of like Courteasy, and utilizing this platform. And we want to partner. We want to get users to actually use the platform to understand where there's, and if they have any pain points that are actually being currently fulfilled by this platform, if there are any minor monotonous tasks that are actually even if it alleviates a little bit of the pain points, it makes our product a much better use case scenario. And this is essentially what I would say, like we're open to collaboration, and we'd welcome any and all suggestions, because I would say there's no we a product is nothing without a user. So anything, please feel free to drop in a email to either me or Niraj. And also, if you want to, we can do a demo of the product. Like we've already done a demo, but we'll give you complete access to the product for 2 months. We as a early adopter, you can see how it works, how what your suggestions are, everything is invaluable, I would say. And this is basically our website. Please go and check it out, and request for a demo, and we'll give you access to our platform for free. Yeah, that's it. Please have any more questions, please feel free to ask me, Niraj. Niraj is the techie. I can answer a little more on the legal side. Yeah.
Thanks, Shruthi. Thanks, Niraj. This was really good. I do have a bunch of questions for all of you together, so let's just finish with Jay's presentation, and then we can take.
Yeah, sure. No worries.
Sure. Let me share my screen. I hope it's visible now.
Yeah.
So hi everyone. Today Shreyans and I will be sharing our work on building AI models for contract assist that we presented at AI/ML conference, and which won the best paper under the industry track. So we'll be sharing some of the insights and the learnings that we had as part of that exercise. So as we all are aware, right, in the last couple of years, and specifically in the last 12 months, we saw how the capabilities of the large language models and in general the AI models have emerged. The chat GPT and the transformers have been that tipping point, and now it seems there's no look back in terms of AI and LLMs. And the legal domain as such, as Niraj and Shruti presented, right, is one of those domains that is going to get disrupted a lot, and there is going to be a lot of efficiencies that is going to come with the help of AI regarding the way people work for legal and writing, drafting, and legal research are some of those areas where AI is going to help a lot. And in the AI model space, there's a lot of activity that's going on in the open source community as well as in the closed source models like OpenAI, Anthropic, to name a few, right? And both of these aspects have their own advantages and weaknesses, right? So if we consider the closed source models, they are very good in terms of quick prototyping and building a solution for a rapid go-to-market, build solution, get a feedback, iteratively improve your solution. But at the same time, you get a little control in terms of costs, latency, and you will always be nervous about sharing your data to this third party. On the other hand, open source models are good. You get a lot of control on in terms of cost, latency, and your data stays with you. But you need a significant effort in terms of technical expertise as well as um, hosting and serving these models. So there is no one size fits all solution. It depends on the use case as well as the maturity of an organization and the use case, I think. Now, to give you some background on the way these models are trained, these models are trained on huge internet data, right? So, which is called pre-training. And as Ilya Sutskever from OpenAI puts it, that this data, the internet data, is the projection of our world, the people, their thoughts, their communication, everything, which is what these models learn through their pre-training. And the objective during the pre-training is the next word prediction. And while doing accurately the next word prediction, these models learns about our world. That is what this pre-training does to the model. And these models are good at having the general knowledge, which gets embedded as part of this the weights of the models. But they are still not an expert we can call in a particular domain, let's say the legal domain, right? So they might know what a case is, what a judgment is, but they would lack that experience that an experienced lawyer would have, and that nuanced details about a particular a domain. And that's when the fine tuning comes into, right, where you pick a pre-trained model that has this general knowledge, and you can adapt such models to a particular use case, for example, contract drafting. So this process is called fine tuning or instruction tuning, so through which you can adapt such models to particular use cases. So let's see what instruction tuning is. So as I was explaining that through the pre-training model basically learns to do the next word prediction. And let's say for this example where we are asking the model that what is the boiling point of water, and we expect an answer for this question. But because the model is trained to do the next word prediction or continue the input text, it might give you a response with more similar questions rather than answering the question. So that's where the instruction tuning helps you. So it teaches model that you need to follow the instruction and accordingly respond with that, rather than simply completing an input text. And reinforcement learning is one step further, where we align such models to be more helpful, harmless, and honest, because we do not want these models to respond with toxic or harmful content. So these concepts are reinforced or taught to these models through reinforcement learning. So this is an example of what we wanted to achieve with this exercise. Um, on the left side, what we are saying is that we are giving an instruction to the model that include a provision defining the court's address and the party's exclusive jurisdiction for any legal disputes originating from this agreement. And along with that, we are also giving some context that consider this context and accordingly adjust or provide me an output. And we expect the model to give us or the continue the clause as a sixth point because earlier in the context it had 5 points, and give us some reference to start with. So this is what we wanted to achieve, and this is I'm presenting this as a starting point to give you an idea about where we are going with this entire exercise. Right. So to achieve this, to build a model that can help us achieve that, we had this four-step process. So as I was explaining, right, so we need to instruction tune any general purpose or a pre-trained model. So we need to prepare the instructions data set. So this data set would have the instruction and the corresponding output. So in this case, this becomes my instruction and the corresponding output becomes my expected output from the model. So we need to prepare such data set. Then we identified an open source model that we would like to fine tune on contract drafting use case. So once we fine tuned such model, we evaluated the performance of this model so that we can understand that whether the model learned something or not, and whether it will be able to follow the instruction or not. And the typical problem with this type of large language model is that they are very huge. So you need some strategies or efficient deployment to be able to get a response in some reasonable time rather than waiting for quite some time and ruining that customer experience. Um, so that's also something that we had explored as part of this process. So to prepare the instructions data set, we had to first identify that what are the different ways a user might interact with this model, right? So we had to understand that what all type of instruction that a user can give. So we came up with two different types of instruction. One is called the generate type of instruction, where a user might say generate a clause, create a clause, write a clause, and so on. This is an example which says like include a non-compete clause in the contract and so on, where a single instruction is sufficient to instruct the model and get the corresponding output. While in the modification, along with the instruction, we also need to give a user also need to give the corresponding context on which the model has to act upon and give a corresponding output. So the difference between generate and modify instruction is that in the generate, there is only an instruction, while in the modify, there is also a corresponding context as an input to the model. So these are the two types of instruction that we considered for while building the data set. So now to generate the data set, we used ChatGPT, which is the model by OpenAI. And we did a lot of prompt engineering, and we carefully crafted our prompt to prompt the model to generate a particular data point, which consists of an instruction and the corresponding output. So we generated almost 5,000 data points with this approach. And we all in this process, we also had a filtering mechanism where we remove instructions which are of similar nature or redundant, and which might not conform to the output format that we just discussed in the previous slide. And in terms, we also wanted to make sure that our instructions data set has wide variety of instructions and as well as the various domains in our data set. So in the inner circle is the top 20 common verbs in a way that user might give the instruction. So which is like a create, add, include, draft, clarify, and so on. And in the outer circle, we have the various types of legal content or the noun that a user might want to create or modify. So it's like create provision, create term, add clause, and so on. So we can see that there is enough variety in our data set with wide variety of instructions that a user might want to give to the model. So now in terms of prompt engineering, we considered two different scenarios while generating the data. So the first one is the multi-role and the second one is single role. So just to explain this, the concept, here is an analogy. Let's say there are two people, one is manager and another is assistant. So manager is giving an instruction that create a legal provision, and the assistant is actually following that instruction and creating the content. So here there are two people, two individual who has a different role. So each one is performing a single role. So that's why we are calling it a single role. While in the multi-role, what happens is in the single prompt, we are asking the model to generate an instruction as well as the corresponding content. So when the model is generating an instruction, it is taking the role of a manager. While while it is generating the content, it is taking the role of an assistant. So there is a context switch within the output that the model is generating. So that's a multi-role scenario. And this in the single role, let's see how we implemented that. So in the single role, the prompt is to generate the instruction only, not the instruction and the corresponding output. So in the first pass, we are only generating the instruction. And then in the second pass, we are passing that instruction to the model as a prompt. And now model would act as an assistant and it will give us the corresponding output. To compare these two approaches, here is the result. In the multi-role scenario, the average number of words that we get in the output is 58, while in the single role, we get almost 178 words. So, and also in the other parameters like clarity, coherence, relevance, completeness, the single role strategy works well. So this is some insight on how if you use ChatGPT or any other LLMs to generate synthetic data, it might be better to break down a complex scenario or a prompt into single or simple single role scenarios and generate a better quality data set. Now I'll hand it over to Shreyans. We'll take it from here on model training part.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. So once we generated the data from ChatGPT, which was discussed by Jay, we thought of, trying out the best model available in the open source community. And we decided to go ahead with these three models mentioned, Llama 2 and Flan T5. And we wanted to have a fair comparison. So the parameters between the model are more or less very similar. Uh, we went ahead with a specific type of training known as LORA, low rank optimization. And we decided to go ahead with the minimal GPU requirement. We didn't wanted to use multi GPU and all. So we want to use single GPU and try to keep it, uh, you know, uh, 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 try to keep it as cheap as we can. So that's the reason we stick to very minimal and basic requirement to even train as well as host the model. And for that reason, we did some minute optimizations and we use these kind of training approaches, and our training lasts approximately 12 hours depending on the model type. So moving on to the next slide. After we had our model fine-tuned, we did a evaluation. And our evaluation method comprises of both, like reference-based metrics, which mean that you have some reference data set available where you have some for a given instruction, what is the actual clause that has been generated. So that is the reference. And we also did a reference free, like we just asked ChatGPT that for this particular instruction, this is the answer generated. How you rate it, rate this answer, given that you are an efficient lawyer who is very much, trained writing contract clauses and all. So from this, we figured out from our, reference-based evaluation, we figured out that the Flan variant is the one which is performing really fine as compared to the other two model. And if we move to the next slide, we did the same kind of comparison for ChatGPT. Can you move to next slide? Yeah. Then we use the ChatGPT as an evaluator, and we keep the following parameter like what is the clarity and coherence of the generated clause, how relevant and accurate the clause is generated, and what is the completeness and precision of the generated clause. And we found out that as per ChatGPT, the other model Llama is more, preferred, even though the difference is very minute, not much, but Llama is more preferred. And based on our analysis, we think that if you make GPT as an evaluator, it tries to, favor longer sequences, like wherever GPT sees that the output is longer, it tried to give more weightage, irrespective of whether that longer output is completely correct or not. So you cannot always simply rely on ChatGPT as an evaluator. So since we had another statistical measure, we went ahead with this FLAN T5 model. And once we have decided this model, we moved to deployment. So next slide. Yeah. So deployment also, we want to make it, deployed on a single GPU. And we had some challenges around it. And to address these challenges, we majorly, investigated two strategies. One is around quantization, which is reducing the model to a smaller weight. And we also tried something known as assisted inference. And there are the pros and cons of both the approaches. But at the end, we were very satisfied with the FLAN T5 variant performance, and we decided to went ahead with this with the quantized inference method. So we tried to optimize as much as we can. And we can move to next slide. Yeah, and we have open sourced this model on Hugging Face as well as the instruction data that we have generated. So like you can see, we named the data as legal clause instructions. You can find it on the Hugging Face. Similarly, our model name as Contract Assist is also uploaded on the Hugging Face, which is free to use and available to anyone under non-commercial license. Yeah, next slide. Yeah. So yeah, thank you. That's what we wanted to cover today.
These slides are public. I'm
These
interested
slides are
to
not.
not
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
proprietary, or they
Yeah,
can be shared, or they can be shared across.
the slides are proprietary, but the models and the dataset we have made public.
Okay, no, I was interested in the slides for the model I can access, but the slides that present your work, that's what I'm interested in. So that was my question, if it's for the public consumption or public for the public domain, or is it proprietary?
So we have published our work on AI/ML conference. So the research paper would be public very soon, I believe. But the slides itself, we haven't shared in the open domain.
Oh, okay, thanks. Well, they are now almost in the open domain because this session is recorded. So I'm just saying. But I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna take them. I mean, I'm interested in them, but unless you make them for public consumption, then unless you want to share with me in confidence in private, I'm not. It's just for my own consumption. I find it interesting how you approach the problem and the trade-offs that you have taken, decision trade-offs that you have taken. This is what I'm interested in, and it's hard to remember these details. That's why I was asking.
I think, yeah, this recording would be available, right? I think, Pavithra. Yeah. You should have access to that, I think.
I had a couple of questions. So first one is like with respect to the curation time of this data set, and like how do you assess the quality of the data itself when you're curating? So like there are ways in which you would basically have some metrics around the size of the data and like different verbs that you use to basically make sure that you're capturing vast diverse scenarios that you expect from your users. But in terms of the correctness, because the data is still generated by like another LLM, so how do you establish the correctness? Did you had like a legal team, human in the loop approach to vet that before you train the model?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we had done. So once we generated our data, we got that initial indication, like we got few samples validated by SMEs. to check the validity or the accuracy of the output, and it came into reasonable accuracy. So that's why we went ahead and considered that. And the solution is is made available openly, but the solution that TR would be building and would be providing the commercial offering has definitely further improvements, and it also uses proprietary data as well. So this is completely on the synthetic data set and completely publicly available resources. So that's why.
Right. And in terms of frameworks that you use to train and the cost that you incurred, can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, so we did this parameter efficient fine tuning, so which is called low rank adaptation. So that has been quite become popular to fine tune this large language model. So that's what we did. And in terms of the machine or the compute cost, it was minimal cost. Probably like we fine tuned this model under 10 or 12 hours for each model. And for each model, I think it costed probably less than $15.
Okay, oh, that is great. And I also, like, with respect to like the evaluation that you use ChatGPT as an evaluator. So what I've noticed is like these scores that it generates, it's like not normalized. So it would never generate a score which is normalized between, for example, if you have a 10-point scale.
Yeah.
So how do you normalize those and then make sure? Because like I have ran into the issues that I have stopped using LLMs. I mean, as an evaluator. That
So
reason.
yeah, I think similar observation. So what we have observed is that ChatGPT, obviously, yeah, for example, you'll never see on the one scale of 1 to 10, you will never see scores of 1, 2, 3 kind of that, yeah, right? So that's a problem. And another observation that we did is that ChatGPT as evaluator is good for comparing, let's say, different outputs, but standalone output you might not be able to judge that accurately. So that's why we also like as an insight we also said, right, that uh, along with the ChatGPT as evaluator, you should also consider at least some statistical metrics to evaluate the quality. Like that's one of the option. And there are also different things about ChatGPT as evaluator, as in like the position bias. And let's say you are evaluating two different output. So it also depends which output goes as a first output. So typically it is observed that ChatGPT gives higher score to the first output in the two output that it has given you, that you have given it to rank. So that are also some of the things that you need to mitigate. But yeah, I think I wouldn't straight away discard that approach, because there are many, like if you work with Gen AI, I think there are a lot of things where you need some evaluation approach, and with some mitigation strategies, probably you can still work with ChatGPT as evaluator.
Right. Great. Thanks for that.
Just a little bit more technical question. Did you measure by blue score the hallucination evaluations of the model? Blue score, BERT score, or at least the recall precision and accuracy averages? Just some idea. I'm interested in that.
We used Ruse and Blue Score because we had a reference clause, and we also had a new clause generated by a fine-tuned model. So we had a reference and model generated output. So we used Ruse and Blue Score for that. And I think, yeah, I mean that those were the statistical measures. And I think BERT score and BART score are also good metric we could have considered, but we didn't consider those metrics.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, how did it score in your measurement of hallucination? Just some idea, don't need like super specific numbers, but was it mostly above average, i.e. better than average, or hit and miss, like not consistent, sometimes very good, sometimes very bad, or some kind of, I'm interested in the hallucination part because that's the hard one to measure compared to, say, recall precision. Those are easier. They're, very well matured, and is not pertaining just to generative models. It's machine learning in general.
So typically, like hallucination problem comes into Q&A type of task, or retrieval kind of task where you are trying to ask something, and even if the model doesn't know, it makes up an answer. So in this case, it's not that an issue, because here we are simply asking it to generate some clause, right, which will have some generic form. It might obviously it will not give you a specific party name, so that those kind of instances were we never observed. But within those three models that we considered, FLAN, Llama, and Llama 2, we observed that FLAN T5, which is an encoder decoder model, it tends to perform like it tends to be very on point, and it deviates very less compared to Llama and Llama 2, which are decoder only models. So this is in line with some of the findings from other research, that encoder decoder models has less tendency to hallucinate compared to decoder only models. So that kind of analysis we had done, and over there we observed that FLAN T5 model performs or has hallucinates less compared to the Llama model.
Okay, thanks.
Does anybody else have any question? Shirsha, Rishabh, Kailash. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everybody. I will let Abhivardhan close the session, but I just had one thing from my perspective to say is that all of you are doing really great work in terms of legal, bringing technology into the legal space, because lawyers are generally very skeptical and apprehensive to embrace it more than any other community, I would think. And we are not taught basic things like even Excel in law school, for instance. That's how much lawyers grapple with technology. But apart from the market and private users, I think there is a great use for this on the side of the judiciary as well. Of course, the reluctance there is going to be even more than you face within the community, but I think they are in dire need of it. And I would urge you all to think about the judgment writing assistance for judges, for instance, and things like that. Of course, happy to connect and speak with any of you on any of those lines at any time. But thanks a lot for this. Abhivardhan?